I'll keep going. So Study Smart series is a team of 12 of us who volunteered to provide mental health and psychology support for researchers. And as I was saying, starting with my own story is that we've all gone through a very lonely research experience one time or another. And the objectives of this training are four. One is definitely we're going to talk about how to study smart. That's how to get prepared ahead of time. And then the smart part is really about the habits. So content is as good as habits. So how to track your mental health through your research journey, very important. Then we'll talk about tools, some mental health maximization tools that you may need to implement, right? So we will be dealing with some deep-seated patterns and seeing how to change that. Now in the middle of the year, so you're probably thinking of some things you're going to change before the year is over, right? Yes. Finally, the fourth objective is about therapy. Why meeting with a therapist is a good idea in the middle of your research journey. As I was saying about my own story is that currently I am finalizing my analysis of my doctorate research, and the journey has not been smooth and easy. It's actually been quite lonesome. And that does not necessarily mean lonely all the time. It just means I am alone a lot of times. I have to make all these decisions. While I was used to being in class, now it's self-directed learning. Another point is that I am not used to speaking my mind. So in research, as opposed to being in class, is that you find that a lot of times somebody requires you to also give you a critique, bring your voice, to the research. And there's another very important point I want to make here is that your content of studying is only 50%. There's another 50% which has to do with your processes, your habits. For example, dealing with your supervisors. That's a very important skill that contributes about 50% to your success, in addition to just studying on your own. And then definitely we are all juggling research along many other careers and roles in the community. And most of us have financial struggles, and that throws a spanner in the works. And so why mental health for researchers is that the landscape for example, doing a PhD or a master's or any such project, even if you're not a student, you're a professional here, is that it's characterized by a lot of uncertainty. And
who is that child who is shouting?
Anxiety. There's a really lack of balance because there's
Joyce, 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 excuse me.
Time.
Wait, okay, let me cut.
Issues that we will be addressing, and finally that we can get unstuck. I really, really hope that some of us who've been stuck for quite a while now can start to be unstuck. And so one of the tools, just as an example, we use a lot in psychology is one called cognitive distortions. So this is just a very brief snapshot, and we will be going into depth with this. I'm trying to entice you because we are about to begin our very first therapy session on the 20th of July. You're very welcome to join. We'll be looking at some of these things. For example, PAM Model J. That's an acronym for a list of thinking errors that is very common for all of us. One of them is personalization. I'll share from my story how it has been more like this is happening only to me. So I personalize the challenges that I'm experiencing in my research journey as if life is unfair only to Joyce, right? Then there's all or nothing. That is black and white thinking. There are no gray areas. It's either I'm 100% or nothing. And being me, I am a little bit of a perfectionist, and I am a 100%er. So that can become a point where I can get stuck. So as I said before, thinking errors happen to everyone. These are very automatic thinking processes, but we will be looking into depth using cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, into how to deal with some of these cognitive errors or thinking errors. Minimizing, maximizing. For example, lately my thesis has turned from being a small molehill into a large mountain. See? So that's maximizing Really little looks really big. And then should statements, that's when I tell myself that I must do this, I must pass, I must be 100%, I must. So the should or the must introduces a lot of stress in life. We'll see how we can deal with that or change that from a should statement to something else. Mental filter is when sometimes I discount every positive step I have made. For example, I just noticed that my NACOSTI permit was given to me for 1 year, but I actually collected my data in 6 months. But this morning, I was not aware of this fact, and I did not remember to acknowledge myself for having done the 1 year data collection period of 6 months. So mental filter is where you count the positive, and then you just, focus on the same as qualifying the positive, right? Then overgeneralization, of course, you can see how that is one of the patterns that really lead to a lot of stress. If you overgeneralize, if you take a comment from a professor and then you mean like you can never be successful in anything. The professor was only dealing with a specific comment. Then emotional reasoning is another very typical thinking error, whereby you're only reasoning from how you're feeling right now. So sometimes when I've had comments and a lot of red marks on my paper, what I do about that is I put it aside. The time the paper, I'm not very well. I'm not emotional labeling or mislabeling. So labeling again is about assigning a label to something, like saying, oh no, this research is so hard. We all say that, right? And that is actually something that can become a success. And then finally, jumping to conclusions. So that's just one technique that's used, and it's a very useful technique when you are able to reflect upon how you have had patterns of thinking that are not useful, right? So in essence, I know it's not very clear, but what I would like you to get is that mentoring is a very important part of the journey. And while the psychologist will be doing counseling is a supportive measure, just like mentoring is. So we're going to be giving emotional support to each other, while your supervisor or your professor gives you informational support, tells you what you're supposed to do by when. And then you do have other people in your life, for example, giving you instrumental support like sponsorship and networks and contacts and things like that. We will be squarely focusing on the emotional support of us managing ourselves, self-management, which is very crucial. It includes self-understanding, and self-understanding again. So it's very, very important. So I'd like us to reflect on a few questions on the process of research. How has it been for you? Number one, on the right of the screen, you can see there's a box there. Is it what you expected? Number two, do you feel this research is going well? Number three, what has been great or easy or enjoyable? Okay. Number four, what has been disappointing in your research journey? So when a lot of students join any program like a PhD or a master's, their expectations for what a research is are very different from what it actually is, right? So usually, many times, people do not get that it is a continual process of learning and changing priorities, right? Another thing is that there is an identity shift, because you've got to put time for this research amidst your other roles. So there's potential for confusion and conflict. Again, you've got to have very good professional relationships, especially with your supervisor. And we're going to be delving into how exactly that can happen. And then transitions are very common. They are very difficult sometimes, but they can be sustained by having supportive relationships. So talking to people that you trust really, really helps. And then definitely students have misaligned expectations. So if you have expectations that are too high, they're likely to be crushed because you're not in reality with what actually that process entails. So that is likely to lead to discontent. And then you need some skills like emotional competence skills, like relationship building skills with our, especially with our supervisors. Some supervisors can be very supportive, some are quite unresponsive, and students have been struggling a lot on their own on these issues. So some tools will be sharing, and a lot of the team members will bring tools one at a time. We'll have very many tools that we're going to use. It's like personality matching. You've got to know your personality so that you can work smart, not just work hard, all right? Then expectations, how to now know this is time for me to go for therapy. Another thing is how to create milestones and bite-sized pieces. And then the idea of momentum or confidence, right? And then how to create an effective and productive community. Remember, we said you're in the driver's seat. You're the one leading the journey. So we're going to be sharing tools on how to create community amongst us. And then we got to still remember that habits are as good as content when it comes to research. So we've got to disrupt this passive approach to learning. I think a lot of us Kenyans especially, we love sitting and waiting to receive. But when you're in the lead of a research project, you're the driver. So everybody is waiting for you to take the car from point A to point B. So we have to stop being passive. I saw a very interesting comparison on the comparison between a therapist and a mentor from a certain website called Coaching Culture at Work. And I'd like to just read that. It says, a therapist, if you were talking about driving a car, maybe you are stuck, you don't know how to drive a car. What are the different roles of the different people? So a therapist will explore what is stopping you driving the car. A therapist is somebody who is trained extensively and has supervision and mostly looks at your past and your deep-seated patterns and negative behavior that is blocking you in the present. So they will explore, they'll do a lot of exploration work on what is stopping you from driving the car. Then you have a counselor. A counselor is somebody who's trained for a short course on just being there. This is somebody who is available, somebody to talk to, basically. Just somebody to talk to. This person will be able to listen to your anxieties about the car. A mentor, on the other hand, is someone who can really unpack their own life. This is a big difference between a mentor and a counselor. In counseling, we have a contract that's quite objective, and the counselor doesn't have a lot of a chance to share their own life. But a mentor can actually share from their life, including their own tips from their own experience of driving cars. So you see the difference between a mentor and a therapist or a counselor, all right? And then a consultant is somebody who you go to for advice, right? So they'll advise you on how to drive the car. A coach will encourage and support you in driving the car. So if you see that all these people are working towards the same person, but they have different angles, sometimes when we therapists will be doing these trainings, we'll take on the hat of a coach, the hat of a consultant, a mentor, a counselor, and so on and so forth. So again, I'm reminding you, all of us, let's join our first therapy session for only 1 hour, right after the next journal club, not tomorrow, the other journal club in 2 weeks' time on 20th of July. I'll be waiting for all of you. I'll be leading that session. So we'll be having these sessions right after the training of the day for 1 hour before people disperse. So you're very welcome to join us at Kenya Science, opposite Nakumatt Junction. So again, this is the team that will take us through the whole year. Definitely, we'll be looking forward for all these wonderful, fantastic topics coming up. And finally, I hope that you are feeling connected, engaged, supported, excited, aware, and invigorated. So at this point, I would like to now hear from you, and I'm going to see whether I can unmute you guys, because I'd like to hear your comments. Right? So you're very welcome. Now it's time for questions. So I'm just unmuting you guys. You're very welcome to share, right? Okay, who has a question or a comment?
I have a comment, Joyce.
About 10 minutes.
Can you hear us, Joyce?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Mary,
Hi,
I can
Joyce.
hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Yes.
I don't
Bella, are you trying to
Joyce.
say something? Trying to unmute Lucy.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Anyone with anything to say? All right.
I sent it as a chat, but what I was saying was that can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
The time now to talk. You relate with anything I've said, and how could you apply it in your life?
Well, I was saying that I was just beginning by saying that from your last question, where you're.
So I'm trying to see.
Just you're muting Lucy. We can't hear the question.
Wait, did I mute myself? Hang on. Hello?
There's just a lot of interference in your background, so if you could get
My
some-
background?
I think
I don't have interference in my background.
Either someone is driving or their radio is on. Please, whoever has the radio on, switch it off.
So Bella, you're trying to say something?
No, I'm saying there's someone who has a lot. I don't know whether it's me
what's
trying to talk,
the
and
problem.
there's a lot of background noise.
I was just saying that, yes, I feel. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
No, I was just saying just what I said on the chat, that I get the sense of support, purpose, and direction, just to answer your question that you had asked when we were coming to the end, Joyce. So, I mean, that for me is what I wanted to say, and I think it's just very useful. And you're very right. There has to be that psychological support for mental health providers in these different things that we do. Absolutely.
All right, guys. If there is no question, maybe we can.
Wait, what are you talking about? What is she talking about?
I cannot hear a thing.
Why can't you hear a thing? I don't get it.
The issue.
Guys,
Yeah.
people, can you listen to this?
Joyce
Okay.
can't hear.
That's what she's saying.
Bella, are you?
Yeah, Joyce can't hear.
Okay.
Me, I think, Joyce, there's a problem on your end because we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah. You can't hear. Let's type. Okay.
Type your message, Lucy.
I have typed it.
Okay.
Okay, let me see. What is there? What's up?
Joyce.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
All right, guys. I don't know.
Lucky Joyce.
Let me see if I can call someone out what's happening here. I think-
Oi.
Wait.
Hi, Aurelia. I'm just trying to unmute myself because everybody can hear me, but I can't hear them.